Let me begin with this.
Today on Eric Scott Talks a Lot, we talk to one of our decorated, amazing heroes, Dennis Coates, about the Marines and his adventures in the Navy. Scott Talks a Lot, brought to you by Random and Reckless Entertainment and Brainstar Media. Be a Brainstar, use your brain. Today, we have Dennis Coates, and he is a military guy who's sacrificed so much for us and has so many stories. And we thought, September 11 coming around and the time of year, not to join you at the hip, but we thought we need to get somebody like you in here. Dennis, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
I really appreciate you guys having me down here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So just to kick things off before we started, I found out, I found something really interesting you were talking about. I'm for the first time watching Band of Brothers, and you told me your view on that. Give me some more on that. How you.
So the problem, anytime Hollywood gets involved in any production, it doesn't matter what the background is. They add the Hollywood spin to it to make it watchable, make it sellable, and all those things. As a military active duty and now retired, the problem I have with those is it's too far removed from reality,
right?
And I struggle to just accept it and follow it and those type of things. There are a few exceptions, and Band of Brothers is right at the top of that list.
Right.
You watch that and you get a feeling of what it was like, what they went through, how it was for them. I didn't anyway. I never got a sense of Hollywood involvement in that in that movie or miniseries, whatever you want to call it. I just never got that. I felt that it was so well done and really tried to represent what life was like.
Well, it's funny because you're adding validity to my feelings, right? Because you have actual experience, and I try to stay clear of that kind of egregious stuff that sensationalized all for Hollywood and stuff. And I like the ones where you just have the guys that were there, and then you get pictures and they hop back and forth, and they it seems like Tom Hanks is on this crusade after Saving Private Ryan to kind of get that stuff out, right?
Yeah. And
I believe he was behind Band of Brothers as well with Steven Spielberg. But this particular one, I just was surfing. Then I'm like, oh, I've heard about Band of Brothers, and I watched it, and I knew this podcast was coming up, and you were kind of flashing in my mind, and this podcast was flashing in my mind, and I just wanted to give a shout out to it and get your opinion on it, So
both my sons and their mother all served, grandparents.
Wow.
But my sons, I think, understood how I would feel about watching certain things. But my older son gave that to me as a gift. The DVD set.
The whole DVD set.
And was able to sit and watch it front to back. And it's really good. I would recommend it to anybody.
Awesome. That's good to know. So we're going to go through your stuff. I wish I had days to talk to you, but just feel free to tell us whatever you feel. You started out in the Marines, you were saying, right?
I did.
So give us a story of what makes you go into the Marines.
All right. So I want to go back even a little bit further than that.
Do it. It's your show. You already told me you were going to take it over. So.
I want to preface everything I say by the fact that I had always intended to write the book of Dennis.
Okay.
And it was going to be from first memory to whenever I stopped remembering.
Okay.
This may end up in there.
Right. Now, how are you going to write it after you stop remembering? I'm just kidding.
I haven't figured that out yet.
Okay.
No,
I'll try to help you out.
So I'll go back to when I was 16 years old.
Okay.
On my 16th birthday, I was kind of a hellion. Okay. Not in trouble with the law, but just a hellion. I went and joined the volunteer fire department in our town. 16 was the age you had to be. It was a couple of days after my 16th birthday.
Now, what year was this?
This was 1975.
Okay.
And I immediately fell into that lifestyle, if you will, of being a volunteer fireman.
Okay. You enjoyed it.
I did. There were no paid firemen in our town. Everybody was volunteer. The
Wow.
age range was 16 up to, when you couldn't get to the fire hall anymore.
Okay.
But it truly gave me a sense of purpose. It made me grow up quickly. A few times, not serious, like life threat. I was never in that situation, but I was in situations where it was hairy. And, it wouldn't take much to go south from here.
Right. You were on that edge.
And
you probably saw a lot of people getting hurt and stuff too, right?
You did. And just fire is just devastating.
Absolutely.
To see it and to see the after effects. But it made me grow up really quick. And the chief of the fire department was a cop in town, and he kind of knew that I was a kid that always needed a kick in the butt, because I would rather give him smart mouth than, a friendly wave.
Right.
He actually tried to block me from joining the fire department.
Okay.
But my stepmother's brother was the deputy chief and had enough backers.
Enough pull to get you in there.
I got in, and it was life-changing. And I
Okay.
did that for almost 4 years.
Wow.
And I lived and breathed. And at 16, New Jersey, you had to be 17 to drive. I rode my bike. When the siren went off, I hopped on my 10-speed, and it was about a little over a mile to the fire hall.
Holy shit.
Day, night, rain, snow, shine, didn't matter. Hop on my 10-speed to the fire hall.
Wow. That's dedication.
Yeah, there was...
You had to love it.
I did. I really, really loved it. Just personally, you get a lot of satisfaction for helping people. You get a lot of discipline. So I had all that going on. Military was never a dream of mine. I didn't, think, when I grow up and graduate high school, I'm going to join the military.
So it wasn't something you were playing when you were a kid?
No.
Right.
This was a late night at the bar decision. and back then...
I've heard that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I have.
Drinking age in New Jersey...
And Vietnam was just ending.
Right. It was only a couple years past.
Yeah.
And the military wasn't a popular place to be.
No, that's what I was going to say. It wasn't very popular. It was,
wasn't a decision that a lot of kids ran to. And matter of fact, there were quite a few judges in my county that when you went for your sentencing, it was
jail, or
you can go to jail, or you can go see the recruiter.
Right.
And
I've heard about this.
If you end up in the military, you will be okay. If not, you're going to come back and serve your jail time.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was sort of the look on the military. So me and my older sister, she's 11 months older than me. I'm sorry, a year and 11 months. At a bar one night, and we said, you know what? We need to do something different. And said, why don't we go join the Navy? I said, okay, I want to be an equipment operator. And the Navy does that, so let's go tomorrow.
I got to know what you were drinking.
Yeah, I mean, back then, I'm sure that was just Budweiser.
Just Budweiser, okay. They were putting something in the American beer to make
you patriotic.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like a Scotch decision.
Right.
So we go the next day to the recruiting station.
Okay.
And we want to see the Navy recruiter.
Okay.
And all the services are in this one little building. And the Navy is down the end of the hall on the left. We walk in, we know what we are going to do. Well, the Navy recruiter's not there.
Oh.
So
Uh-oh.
turn around, and we're coming back up the hall, and the Marine is like leaning against his door jamb like a $10 hooker.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, hey, could I help you? And of course, I didn't want to join the Marines. I wasn't dumb even back then.
Yeah.
I was like,
He's
no,
fishing.
not really.
Right.
I'll get into even how the story gets better. He gets me in his office, and he convinces me that driving a tank is no different than driving a bulldozer. So if I were to learn to operate a tank, I could operate a bulldozer. And I honestly don't believe the Marine Corps had tanks in 1978, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, right. Right.
So at the end of the day, I'm signing the paperwork.
The end of the day, you didn't even think about it.
No,
you did it.
No, I didn't leave. Yeah.
You did it. Like a good Marine.
I was in boot camp
Right.
less
You
than 4
jumped.
days later
Wow.
from visiting there.
Holy shit. Okay.
And my sister, who was going to join with me on the brother-sister program,
Mm-hmm.
she had some paperwork to get together. Child custody thing, I think she had to take care of. And he said, well, boot camp for women is shorter than men. So if you go now and we send her then, you'll both be out before Christmas.
Mm.
And I, honestly, I don't know any better. I wanted to change.
Right.
Boy, did I get one.
Wow.
So headed off to Paris Island. I was there probably 2 weeks and got a letter from my sister, because this is back when there was no email.
You got letters. That's it.
Yeah. Got a letter from her saying, well, the Marine Corps won't take me. And I was like, you so kill her.
Oh, my God.
I'll wring her neck. I mean, I was so angry because, you know, she was the one that started the whole, let's do something different.
Right. Right.
So then she wasn't going.
Yeah. You felt a tether there, like almost a bit of safety there, right? Because you're
Right,
both
'cause
going in a familial kind of way, right?
Right.
Gotcha.
So that's how I ended up in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
What did
your sister end up doing? Did she end up joining?
She joined the Air Force.
Okay, gotcha.
And actually, she went to boot camp, I think, 4 days or 5 days before I got out of boot camp.
Okay.
So I got out right before Christmas, but she was gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I found out many years later, this was like the 27th of September.
Okay.
And the recruiting year ends on the 30th of September. So I'm sure this guy had to make his goal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And here comes some dumbass from South Jersey.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that was...
You probably walked out the door. He was like...
That was one day. Next day, I was at MEPS. I took my physical, my ASVAB test, all that. And then 2 days after that, I was...
They don't fuck around.
No. Like I said, end of the month, I'm sure they had, you know, they had shit they had to get done. And I was that shit.
So you're 2 weeks in Paris Island, and then where do you go? What?
No. I was there 2 weeks before I found out she wasn't going.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I was Paris Island for 12 weeks.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering why I was so short.
And they teach you everything from how to stop thinking for yourself and blind obedience and those type of things, which I understand. And I mean, it's not that I didn't appreciate them.
Is it really like that Full Metal Jacket entry with it Kubrick did?
I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, because that was the other movie I was going to talk to you about. The boot camp part of that movie, Full Metal Jacket, made me be back in boot camp again.
Oh, did it? Did it?
What's that guy's name?
He got just huge off that role, right? He played a military guy from then on, and he was even in Toy Story, but he was a soldier, correct?
He was.
Right.
Prior to his acting career, he was a Marine, I believe.
Yeah, and that's what Kubrick did. He'd find real people, to keep the authenticity.
But he did it. He did the drill instructor role justice of how he was and how he treated them and what it was like when those guys are in the barracks and all those things. It was very realistic to me, having been there.
Wow. So it really took you back. That's interesting. That's interesting.
It did.
I saw it the first time in the theaters, and I was just absolutely mesmerized. I had to get my grandma to go with me because I think I was too young.
Yeah.
And
that was Arlie Ermy.
Huh?
That was Arlie Ermy.
Arlie Ermy is his name, right?
Yeah, Arlie Emery.
Arlie Emery.
Yeah.
He did the thing on the History Channel too.
Did he?
Yeah. But he was like, he's badass.
Oh, it blew my mind. I knew that there had to be some reality to the way they were doing this, and the whole jelly donut thing and the whole, it's just
another one that's not exactly alike, but Lou Gossett Jr.
Okay.
An Officer and a Gentleman.
Okay.
How he conducts himself when he's dealing with those cadets, the pilot cadets. How he conducts himself is very reminiscent to me of how my drill instructors were in boot camp.
Right. Do you get any I don't mean to bring like PTSD when you watch these shows, or is it palatable for you, or do you avoid them? I don't mean to get too prying. But...
No, it's palatable to me.
Okay.
I mean, it definitely, and like I said, Full Metal Jacket definitely brought a lot of those feelings and emotions back. But
a lot of those times were probably joyous, right? Because you're with your brothers, right?
It wasn't horrible.
Right.
Right. It just wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We only grow through suffering, right?
That's right.
That's it. So you're there for 12 weeks, and where do we go?
So after 12 weeks, I got out of boot camp right before Christmas.
Okay.
I went home.
So do you know what you're going to be then? And sorry to be so archaic. I know the Army is like your MOS, right?
It is in the Marines also.
Okay.
So I went.
Not archaic. I meant ignorant. But keep going.
I had my shit so well together.
Okay.
On this 4-day journey to join the Marine Corps. He wanted me to drive tanks in the Marines, which I don't think they had, which is why he didn't sign me up to be a tank driver.
Okay.
They set me an open contract. So I literally could have ended up doing anything.
Okay. Open contract means you can go anywhere you want or where they want to put you.
Only where they want to
Where they want to put you. Gotcha.
And it's based on test scores and a bunch of things, but you literally can.
What was I thinking? Go where you want. Anyway. Fuck, you could smack me for that one.
Private Benjamin, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Fuck yeah, Goldie Hawn. Anyways.
Yeah, so I mean, my ASVAB score was good.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turned out, I got orders to be a data processor.
Okay.
And this is, I mean, 79.
Data processor in 79. So what does that mean?
They were, back then they were programming computers on cards.
Right.
It was that type of thing, I'm guessing. I never did it.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
So, yeah, so I got to backpedal a little. So in that process, one day in boot camp, you go and, depending on what your ASVAB score, which ASVAB is your Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery or something like that.
Right.
Based on what your score is, they send you to a room, a bunch of you, and you take some tests.
Okay.
And you don't really know what the tests are because the Marine Corps has no interest in informing you of anything.
Okay.
Other than when to go to sleep, when to eat, when to pee, when to poop.
Right.
They'll tell you that, but nothing else.
Right.
So I go and take these tests. One was a language aptitude, one was Morse code aptitude, and I don't even remember what the last one was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently, to keep my streak going of dumb mistakes in Marine Corps, I did well on the Morse code aptitude.
Okay.
So then I get pulled back again to this other building that was menacing, and they start like interrogating me about, did you ever kiss your priest, and have you ever touched little kids, and whatever it was. It was a bunch of personal stuff.
Right.
What they were trying to do is see if I would have been eligible for a clearance.
Okay.
So that was the start of the process. And then there was a ton of paperwork. And then they literally sent people to my hometown, and they talked to teachers at the school and the
wow. So
chief
they were
of the
vetting
fire
you.
department.
They were vetting you. Yeah.
And this is just the initial brush too. This isn't like,
this is right out the gate, right?
right.
Yeah.
And this is, at this point, I'm probably 8 weeks in to 12 weeks.
Wow.
Well, then they call me back after all that happens, and they asked me if I would be interested in being a 2621. That was the MOS, which translated to a Morse code intercept operator.
Okay.
And I said, okay. Well, I didn't say okay just yet. They were showing me pictures of where the school was, and the school was in Pensacola, Florida.
Okay.
They're showing me palm trees.
Oh shit! Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And I'm from South Jersey, man.
Yeah, yeah.
You showing me, I'm like, I'm in.
I lived in Philly, in North Philly, for a while.
Yeah.
I did my master's work there, and there's a big fucking difference between the East Coast and Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah. So
we're not turning around the garbage, and around down the street and all that.
It was a no-brainer for me to say yeah. So that is ultimately where I ended up going. I went to Pensacola for training in Morse code.
Okay. Now, was it everything you thought of when they showed you on the?
I mean, Pensacola.
I've never been to the state of Florida. So
Pensacola was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, the drinking age, I think in all of Florida back then, drinking age was 18.
Perfect.
So I was over 20, but not 21. But that was good.
Yeah.
A lot of partying.
Mm-hmm.
One of the key things of learning Morse code is the ability to type.
Okay.
Which a lot of kids learn in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I did not.
Mm.
And when you learn to type, I don't know, did you learn to type as a kid?
Home row position, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that, but I never used it later.
So in typing, if you take typing in high school, they teach you to type by your eye.
Right.
If that makes sense. You look at this and you type what you see.
Exactly. You should know your movement without looking at your hands.
So you get that connection, eye to fingers. That's not how I learned. I learned ear to fingers.
Okay. Unpack that for me.
So in Morse code, A is da-da.
Okay.
And when you hear da-da, your pinky goes to the A.
Oh.
And when you hear da-da-da-da, that's a B.
Right.
And you start off slow. They give you a couple letters. Your fingers get used to that till you're up doing the whole alphabet. So that's how I learned to type. And my second ex-wife, I had told her one time we were talking about typing, I said I learned to type orally, which is by ear. But she's from Iowa, and she only heard me say orally, and she could not understand how I learned to type by my mouth.
Right.
Like, no, it's orally.
Orally.
In my ear, she really was that special. In my
she
ear,
fixated with orally.
in my ear to my finger.
You're right.
So when I, even much later on in my career, if I'd be typing, I am generally saying the letters in my head so that my brain processes A and D, and my fingers respond to me like saying them as opposed to just reading them.
Right.
I mean, now I can do whatever, but yeah, early on. Anyway, that was a key part was learning to type.
Right. Right.
So I learned to type. I learned Morse code. I met my first wife. I'm guessing. I mean, I got there in January, and we got married in May, and we didn't date for at least half of that. So I may have met her, and I may have started dating in March, and we got married in May.
Right.
She was in the Navy.
Yeah.
I was in Marines. We felt pressure to get married because she was getting ready to transfer. And if we were married,
then you get more money, more benefits.
And I could go where she went.
Oh, gotcha.
Otherwise,
they'll try to stick you together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we got married, and she graduated. She went off to Okinawa, Japan.
Okay.
Then I ultimately graduated and ended up in Japan with her. She is retired military. Also. She's the mother of both my boys.
Okay.
And we did the family thing for 24 years.
Okay, so you were married for 24 years.
First time.
Yep, first time.
We always were stationed together. Other than deployments, a deployment is a 6-month stint,
right?
Or whatever.
Yeah.
The kids were always with us. So that was the start of the military career. Anyway, was her and I going off to Okinawa. Me as a Marine, her as a sailor.
Gotcha.
What I learned pretty quickly, because I'm getting smarter now.
Right.
Now I'm like 21.
Right.
Is my Navy coworkers are doing about half the amount of work I'm doing.
Right.
For the same amount of pay. I'm like, this don't make sense. I mean, we all do our job, but then the Marine Corps had me going and marching and cleaning my rifle and stuff I had zero interest in. So I knew early on that the Marine Corps was not the way for me.
Not where you were going to stay.
No.
Okay.
Not a chance.
Right. And is that seems a little, I mean, I don't know, but that seems a little odd to me that to switch in the middle, right? Do you hear that very much? People going from Marines to Navy or Army?
Yeah.
Does it happen?
It's not really in the middle, though. I mean,
right.
I served my enlistment.
Right, but so people do hop around a bit.
Yeah.
Because I always just think they stick with one thing and go for it. You know, because it's kind of like, this is what I am, and
I mean, some people do. I'll be honest with you, Eric. Me switching services, not just personally, but professionally, was the smartest thing I ever did.
Awesome.
Because promotions in the Marine Corps slowed way down. I was out for 2 years. We were living in Guam because that's where
So your enlistment was 4 years?
Back then it was called a 4x4.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, a 4x2.
4x2.
You did 4 years active, 2 years inactive reserve.
Gotcha.
So
that's
inactive-
once a weekend every.
No,
or
inactive,
one
you
weekend.
do nothing.
Oh, you do nothing.
Yeah,
but they
no.
can just call you up in case they.
At any time, you
right.
could be recalled.
Gotcha.
You still carried a red ID card, but
Okay.
you didn't have to drill.
Mm.
You didn't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
On the surface, you didn't get paid.
Right.
What I found out years later is that 2 years of inactive time
Mm-hmm.
counted towards my longevity pay, towards my retirement.
Well, that's good.
For years served. Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
It put me up, another bracket.
Right.
Because it's a 2-year bracket.
So can you cross so if you did 4 years in the because your standard retirement is 20 years, right?
Yes,
So if you did 4 years, when you move over, you can move that time over too.
correct.
Okay.
Then
You don't
then
have to
don't
start
have
over and do
16.
24 years, right?
Nope.
Okay. So you do
No, you
16
just-
years.
Yeah.
So you got credit for 6 years.
I did for pay.
Okay.
I got
right,
for pay.
for
I got credit for 6 years. Now that 2 years inactive would not count towards the 24 retirement.
Right.
I would have to do 20 active. But if I had retired at 20,
Mm-hmm.
I would have been retiring as an E9 with 22 years.
Right.
In this case, I did 30.
So did you go then after those 4 years? Did you go then into like a civilian job, or what happened in that 2 years?
Okay, so I was getting out. We were all leaving Okinawa,
Okay.
Japan. My oldest son had been born in Okinawa. He was
Okay.
about a year old. And my ex-wife got orders to Guam.
Okay.
I don't know if you noticed the palm tree theme here from
Right.
Pensacola
To Micronesia.
Okinawa
Yeah.
to Guam.
Yeah.
I had have been attracted to palm trees and didn't know it. But she got transferred there. I went back to the States. I got discharged at Camp Pendleton in California.
Okay.
We took some leave and then we all went to Guam. They have a Navy recruiter in Guam because Guam is U.S. territory.
Right.
And they recruit there. But the process was painful. At the time, retention in the military was high because I had mentioned to Randy earlier, Reagan took office when I was
80?
in, yeah. And it went into Grenada. I know it wasn't a big thing. Military just started getting respect back. And people were happy, I think, once again to be serving, and there was some pride and pay. I think our first pay raise under Reagan was something crazy like 14%. I mean, it was crazy for young kids. So retention was high. It was difficult getting in, but I'd get hired because the military family takes care of itself. And
So in 80, it was actually difficult to get in. Because
this would have been
Pride
83.
nationalism is rise. We have more money for the industrial
Yeah.
complex.
And Reagan was ramping up to the 600 ship Navy, and
Yeah, and they were going for this neoliberalism, this world market, right? This world community. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. And
So-
he knew he needed the fleets to do that.
he needed the backup.
Exactly.
So that my instructor in Pensacola taught me how to copy Morse code. Happened to know a guy in Guam whose wife was the manager at the exchange, and before I ever landed, I had a job.
So you were valued. Gotcha.
And that felt good just to have somebody
Absolutely,
taking care of me, looking out for me. So I worked in a warehouse for 2 years, waiting to get into the Navy. I finally got in. Fortunately, you take another test because that's how you do.
You got to start over, kind of thing on that, right?
So if you score a certain score on this test, you don't have to go to boot camp. And I scored well enough. I had to go back to the States. I had to go to Great Lakes. I had to qualify, do my firefighting qualification and my swim qualification.
Okay.
And get uniforms and all that stuff. But that's what I went back to Great Lakes for 2 weeks and jumped in the pool and went to firefighting. And otherwise, because I was then a petty officer, even though I was at boot camp, but I wasn't in boot camp, so I had liberty every night, and I could go and hang out and in Great Lakes and do whatever I wanted.
Okay, so that Great Lakes, what area? San Diego is the main area, right? And where you just told me where Great Lakes was? Did you say California?
It's just north of Chicago.
Chicago. Okay. Oh, the Great Lakes. Okay, I thought you meant it was like a city or blah 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 blah.
Well,
Great Lakes.
it
So
is-
you're talking about the Great Lakes, right?
Well, it's called Great Lakes.
Okay, it's the city is Great Lakes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, I get it now.
And San Diego is not the main anything.
It isn't anymore. Okay,
Marine Corps still does.
but doesn't San
training.
Diego have a huge naval base, right?
They do. Well, they had a boot camp, and
Okay.
the Marine and the Navy boot camp used to touch up against each other.
Okay.
On the backside of the airport.
All right.
But the Navy closed. The Navy got out of Orlando and San Diego and started sending everybody to Great Lakes.
Okay, so you're in Chicago, up by there.
In Chicago,
You're in Illinois.
This is. I mean, it's summertime because I joined like the 25th of June.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been to the Great Lakes? Any of them?
I have.
Lake Michigan is like right there. There's
Mhm.
places just off Lake Michigan, and our first weekend there, everybody wanted to go to the beach and go to Lake Michigan, and I just came from Guam.
Right,
And,
right.
And the water in Guam is bathtub
Oh my gosh,
temperature.
it's beautiful, huh?
And they wanted to go in the water. I'm like,
Yeah,
no, you're nuts, man.
yeah.
I mean, if you're from here, it's probably, oh yeah, that's
Right,
nice. But
right.
yeah, I had come from Guam, and there was no way I was going into that.
That's
cold water.
funny. That's so funny.
So I went there, and again, because of the family type atmosphere, my wife still had 15 months to go in Guam, so they cut me orders for 15 months, and I went back to Guam and served my first 15 months in the Navy there.
Now, so you're continuing to do the Morse code.
Same job.
Okay.
Now the Navy don't have MOSs; they have what's called NECs.
Okay.
However, if you're just a minion, they
Right.
don't even assign a number to you, so you're
You're
call it a
numberless.
quad zip. So
Okay.
you're 4 zeros.
Okay.
You're
zip.
a quad zip.
Right.
Then I was a CTR, which
Okay.
translates the same thing. It was Morse code intercept operator back then.
Okay.
And that got me started in the Navy. And I got out of the Marines as an E5.
Okay.
A sergeant.
Uh-huh.
And when the Navy took me in, they took me in as an E4. And
Okay.
I'd waited 2 years, so I wasn't going to fight them on it.
Mm-hmm.
I really should have been brought back as an E5, but it was what it was.
You
So-
wanted to move and get it done.
So I came back in, and in the Navy you test for advancement up until Chief, E7. And I mean, I knew a test was not going to be any problem, so I knew I would advance.
You'd get there.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was all good.
Okay. What happens after that then? Where do we go after that?
All right. Could we go back?
Go
in
anywhere
our
you
story?
want,
And I'll
Dennis.
tell you. So this hateful sister of mine, who didn't go in the Navy or the Marine Corps,
And isn't the Air Force kind of like, we're Air Force, right?
she ended up in the Air Force, and she was a crew chief on F4s.
Okay.
And I mean, this is early 80s. There's not a whole lot of F4 inventory, I don't think, in Air Force at the time. But one of the things they were used for is reconnaissance.
Okay.
But she got stationed at Edwards Air Force Base in California. And she had done a couple years there. But I was in Okinawa, you know, me and my wife. And this is probably even before my oldest son was born. She got transferred to Okinawa. So we spent...
You're all there.
Yeah, a little over a year together. Her and I, we had a 3-bedroom house, and you know, we lived together. And I was a Marine, which is as military as you can be, and
Right.
she was Air Force, which is as least military, like discipline wise,
Right.
Especially back then.
Okay.
But she would come home and she would talk about Buzz, and I didn't know who Buzz was, but she would say Buzz this and Buzz that. And one day I said, "Who is Buzz?" She said, "Oh, that's the colonel. That's whose plane I work on." I'm like, "Buzz? You don't call the colonel Buzz? What the fuck's the matter with you?"
Right.
She said, "He straps that plane on every day that I work on. I'll call him whatever I want."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just a different culture.
You got me on that one, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's interesting.
So she got sent there, and
And you're like, damn it, you're supposed to be right here next to me. You're so...
we had gone on to Guam, and she served out her enlistment. I think she did. I think she separated at the end of her 4-year or whatever it was, her commitment. No, I take that back, Eric. She went off from Okinawa to Vegas.
Oh.
And she was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base.
Okay.
And I didn't know what she did at Nellis Air Force Base because she wasn't allowed to tell me.
Oh.
Which is ironic because I was never allowed to tell her what I did.
Right.
But I knew that she would go to base on a Monday morning early, hop on a plane and go away. And she would come back Friday afternoon.
Oh.
And when she got back Friday afternoon, she was off that weekend, that whole following week, the second weekend, and then on a Monday again, she would go back, hop on that plane, go away for the week, and come back Friday afternoon, and start that whole process over. Several years later, I found out she was crew chiefing on the F-117, on the stealth fighter. Was at
Wow.
Groom Lake at that time.
Yeah.
Very, very, very in the dark.
Right.
Nobody talked about it. They never acknowledged it.
That was a long time ago. We
Yeah.
didn't know about any of that.
No,
None.
that's what she was doing. And
Wow.
I think I actually put it together. I was watching the news and something come on, and they started talking about this plane is moving from here to somewhere in New Mexico. And I was like, oh. I called my sister. I said, hey,
I know what you're up to.
have you seen the news? She
Yeah.
said, why? I said, because they're talking about an Air Force plane called F-117. So like, I'll call you back. But yeah, it's what that was the wayward sister. That's what she did for the rest of her. She probably served 6 years.
So she served 6, and then she was done.
Yeah, she got out and she worked in the space industry in California for a couple of years, but that's very unstable. It's contract work, and you have a job today and not one tomorrow type of thing. So anyway, I wanted to clear up that little circle there.
Right, absolutely.
So then my wife and I got stationed in Virginia.
Okay.
I was riding ships out of Norfolk, but stationed at a little base. Actually, the building I worked in, you parked in the park lot, and you had to walk down a little road to get inside this antenna array. And this is a big antenna array, like it would take up your whole property here, type of array.
Huge.
But on the walk in, you cross over into North Carolina. There's a sign there, welcome to North Carolina.
Right, that's funny.
So the building actually was in North Carolina. That's how close we were.
So you'd park and then
Park in
walk over
Virginia
and walk over to North Carolina.
Yeah. That was another good tour for us. My younger son, Devin, by the way, who
that brought us together through Randy.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was born in Guam. So
Okay.
Both kids born outside the United States.
One's born in Okinawa, one's born in Guam.
Yeah, both born in military hospitals, and Guam is an American possession, so it wasn't as convoluted.
Now, did they go into the military?
They both did.
Okay.
Devin served 9 years. And I was thinking about this before I left to come down here today. He would be getting close to retirement if he had stuck with it.
Right.
Right. But it's not for everybody.
Right.
And I appreciate that probably more than anybody. That's not for everybody. We went there. We did our thing. I rode ships out of Norfolk. I got a bunch of special training that I really enjoyed. They sent me to Pensacola again.
Okay.
This is my third time going to Pensacola.
Right.
To learn a specific piece of equipment.
Okay.
And I was going to ride the JFK to the Med for the 6 month
And what year are we in right now?
That would have been 88 when I think 87 when I went to the training. I did all the workups with the JFK.
So now we got Old Bush is in.
Yep.
Okay.
Old Bush.
Right. And we're right on the crest of Desert Storm. 90, right? 90,
yes, a little bit earlier
90,
than that. This is still...
So this is 87, 88 probably.
Yeah. 87, 88. Gaddafi and Libya were
I remember.
Sort of the hot button then. So I do all the workups with this chip, operating this piece of gear. And I think the day we left port, which was August 1st, 1988, for our 6 month deployment, that piece of gear broke, and it never operated again.
Wow.
So the thing they sent me to school.
So do you leave on the deployment? and it's broke.
It broke.
So do they reassign you?
I mean, I operated a different piece of gear.
Right. But
yeah.
that one isn't the one you were.
That one
what
was
you were trained on.
Tits up, and it was a Unisys piece of gear, but the disc were like platters.
Right.
And you stack like 6 of them on top of this thing, like they were a slow cooker or something.
Okay.
I mean, it's old memory, and like I said, I never actually got to use it that much, but
right.
Yeah, broke, and I went on and did other things. But if you're familiar with the Navy, you would know back then anyway, the Navy had very few fossil fuel carriers.
Okay.
The Nimitz class had come out. There were several nuclear powered aircraft carriers, but JFK was fossil fuel.
Okay.
And you just can't go burn circles in the ocean for 6 months because that's too expensive.
Too much money, yeah.
So we
never thought of it that way.
Hop from port to port to port to port.
Okay.
We would go out for a couple of days and do an exercise with the host country or whatever, go to the next port.
So that was pretty cool, right?
It was amazing.
Yeah, because you're always going into port, right?
We got to go to Alexandria.
So on a 6 month, let's say on a 6 month run, now there's conflicts happening. I don't want to ask you too much, but there's conflicts happening everywhere. Tell us about a 6 month run, like in 87 or 88.
Okay, so
I know we were in Nicaragua at that point, right?
Yeah.
We're having trouble with Gaddafi. I think we were even down in Panama a little bit, and
yeah, I think Panama may have been just short of that because I think they went in to get Noriega when we were doing workups.
Right, I was just going to ask that.
Out in the Caribbean one 1 week or whatever when that went down. So there wasn't actually a whole lot going on because by then the battleships had wiped out the hillside in Lebanon, whatever they were going to do.
Right.
But Gaddafi was still Gaddafi.
Yeah.
We had a port call in Marseille, France, I believe, either Marseille or Nice at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. And our next port call was going to be Alexandria, Egypt.
Gosh, you've seen the world.
Yeah, and I mean that was probably one of my best port calls right there. But so we're going, and one of the things they do is they want to make sure Gaddafi knows that you don't tell us what to do.
Right.
You're just a small third world leader.
Right.
So we did what was called freedom of navigation ops. And he had
kind of flexing muscles kind of stuff?
Yeah, he had the line of death at the Gulf of Sidra. That was the line of death. If you cross this, blah, blah, blah. So we're on our way to Egypt, and they send some F-14s out. Mm-hmm. And, the purpose is to cross the line of death. Because we've recognized 3 miles, I think, back then.
Yeah.
And they sent fighters up.
Right.
And their rules of engagement, you break contact, and they re-engage. It has to happen 3 times or whatever it is. I didn't study those, but in the end, they got too pushy, and both the MiGs were shot down.
Right. That was big news.
Yeah,
it was very big news. I vaguely remember that.
I think that the 2 air crews off the
they
2
shot
F-14s.
Down, they shot down 2, and it was a big deal.
Yeah,
I remember it being a big
They got
deal.
back to the carrier, and I think they flew them back to the States for debriefing right away.
Right.
I have a.
And didn't we hit him like right away? Didn't we return right away? We did something. I can't remember, but I was in 7th grade. I remember.
I think the next time that we really went after him was after the bombings in Berlin.
Oh, okay.
But
I thought we did some major action back then when I was a kid on him, but I can't remember.
So we went to Egypt, and MWR, which is Morale, Welfare, Recreation, sponsored tours.
Morale, Welfare, Recreation.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the business.
Right. So pick up morale. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They put together tours and trips, and one of the tours while we were in Alexandria was to go to Cairo and see the pyramids. Wow. Go to the museum where all King Tut stuff was, which is right across the street from the big Anwar Sadat Memorial, where he was assassinated.
Yep.
And you get off the bus and you walk up, and like you just stand there and you touch the pyramid, and look at the pyramid and be amazed by the pyramid. And on the way back out, then we stopped down where the Sphinx is.
Yeah.
And you get to get out there and look at that. And I mean, it's falling apart, but you know, how old is it? You know?
Right.
But the significance is still there. And I'm not like a super history geek,
Right.
but history,
You can't avoid it
yeah,
when you're traveling like that.
I like it.
You
And
know?
I had already been to Pompeii on this cruise.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Like,
Did you
just
go to the city and
spent
see
all
where
day
where all
walking
the
around and
oh, God,
how
so
they
crazy.
dug
how they
the-
all die like quickly and like
yeah, and they, you know, they have plaster castings of bodies where they had found the
Right.
bodies, and
yeah.
they cleared off some of it, and you could see some of the primitive paint was still on the buildings. It was mind-boggling to me. I went twice, and I was completely like awestruck both times I went to Pompeii.
So let me jump in real quick.
Okay.
We started with the kid drinking some Budweiser with his sister, right? Really, green as green gets. Besides the fire, you know.
Yeah.
The idealistic as hell probably at that point. And now you've just shot through the wall of education because you're doing like I told my 21-year-old after he got done with high school, I said, you can go to college or you can go just travel the world. You're going to learn just as much in a year or two. I mean, you just really are. You know what I mean? So you probably more. You know what I mean? So it's amazing that this worked out because we've all heard the stories of the Navy SEAL, right? It's go see the world.
Right.
You know, and I've had so many friends come back, go, bullshit. You know what I mean? I spent all this time here or I did this and then it was over. But I'm hearing so much different from you. It's really cool.
I will tell you that I consider myself one of the luckiest people in the world to have taken this journey. And even sometimes small things, Eric. I was the command master chief of the recruiting district in Omaha, Nebraska.
So you recruited too?
I didn't recruit.
But you were
took care of the recruiters.
The recruiters. Gotcha.
I had recruiters in North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska,
Okay.
Minnesota, Iowa, one station in Illinois, one station in Minnesota. And I traveled all that. I had a little government car. They put all the Navy advertisements at the time. This is just post 9/11. All the Navy advertisements and trunk wrapped my car. So that's what I drove around the Midwest in.
Yeah.
And you know, I went here, there, and everywhere. I held a retirement ceremony for one of my sailors
at a really high point of national pride because we were so.
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh, everybody had a flag on their car. You know,
we were at the base of Mount Rushmore, so a little amphitheater down there. We did a retirement ceremony for him.
I've been there.
At that same time, they got us a trip to Crazy Horse, which is just south of there.
Yeah, up in Wyoming, right?
No, this is still South Dakota.
Is it South Dakota?
Yeah, south of Rushmore.
Okay.
Get on a bus. They drive us around the backside, and we're up like right under Crazy Horse's nose.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
The arm was there. Then the whole head was done, but we're like right up there. And
okay.
To me, I'm like this would never have happened if I had have just been a factory worker in New Jersey.
Absolutely.
Which I had done.
Yeah.
But to see little things, to go through Nebraska, some of the Pony Express type things, the railroad type things.
Right.
When I would go into a town where I had a recruiter, I'd stay at a hotel. And most hotels have the guest book.
Okay.
And I would open up the guest book and I would read what Grand Forks, North Dakota is famous for. And it's famous for cream of wheat. That's where cream of wheat was invented.
Yeah.
And I always did stuff like that.
Well, what blew me away is, so when I went, you coming from Washington, you've been here forever, you know the area. We have history, but we don't have history like the East Coast, right?
Yeah, right.
So we have Native American history, that kind of stuff. But being a Westerner, I went out there and I'll never forget this. So it was probably like the 4th day of school. And I'd stopped at a Dunkin' Donuts. And I used to read, I got there about about a month before I started school to kind of acclimate and stuff. And I kept seeing all these plaques, you know. And so I got in the habit of reading these. It's almost like a stud coming out, a fence post coming out, and then they shave the top and they put a little plaque on it. That's it. And they're everywhere, right? So I come out of this Dunkin' Donuts and I decide to read it. And it says, this is the furthest the British got. It's shit like that. And you're standing there eating a fucking donut. Right. You know what I mean? And you're thinking, these guys and driving through certain places in Philly where you find out, 3,000 troops starved to death and stuff like this, and the sacrifices they made. It's just incredible to see that history. So I don't get it on your angle, but I get that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? To read those guest books and
you know what's funny about that whole history thing about, I grew up in South Jersey. I mean, I traveled from Massachusetts to North Carolina with my dad fishing all the time. You get to see that bit. Then you go to Europe.
Right.
And our history.
Right. Is nothing.
I mean, there are people that live in houses that were built in the 1700s.
Exactly. Yeah. My mom, I was a rebellious young child raised by my grandmother, and she wouldn't let me get a tattoo. So I went and after September 11th, I went and got, I think, my first tattoo. No, it was before that, way before that. I got a tattoo that said "Made in the USA" on the back of my neck. It was my first tattoo. And I walked around there and I wanted, it was like I used to put my Iron Maiden records, the Kiss records on the table so she'd bitch, so she'd see him and she'd be like, "Get that filth off me," you know what I mean? Or I'd turn it up really loud. She'd say, "Turn that shit off," Well, I'm walking around for days trying to get her to notice this tattoo to piss her off, And she finally says, "You think you're so cute with your tattoo." And I turn, old cantankerous Swedish woman, she looks at me, she goes, "You weren't born in the USA. You were made in Germany." Or made in the USA is what it said on the back. And she goes, "You weren't made in the USA. You were made in Germany." So that kind of, that was my, yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? But
I joke with especially my oldest son, because neither one of them celebrate their birthday necessarily on the right day.
Okay.
The oldest one was born in Okinawa. He was born early in the morning on 7th of July.
Okay.
Well, that wasn't the 7th of July in the United States. It was the 6th of July.
That. Right.
7th of July. The 12th of July.
12th of July, right. So, you're about to get in some big trouble there.
I know. Well, the other one was born on the 7th of February, so that's why I had 7 on the brain.
So then they went back and had to get their American date or their.
No, they never did. They keep what it was there. But I said, when I told my older one this year, who just turned 39, I said, when I called your grandmother, it wasn't the 12th of July. It was the 11th of July. I called your grandmother to tell you were born.
That's interesting.
But it's the 12th of July because it gets really convoluted, but it's fun to joke about.
Yeah, but seeing that, like being over there, I couldn't even imagine what you see and what you take in over there, and being, in the capacity that you're in, hopping from port to port, and having those trips planned for you, and I mean available to you. It's just incredible.
Yeah, MWR, as far as I know, still does great things.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't even know that existed.
In addition to just that, Eric, I had the opportunity to be stationed in London.
Really?
I worked in the building that was Eisenhower's headquarters during World War II.
Wow.
It was catty corner from the U.S. Embassy in downtown London. That's where I went to work every day.
Wow.
Everybody
wanted to go back to England.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to. Can we just go back to England, right?
Right.
Or to France for some R&R, right?
I got to live in South Germany for 3 years, just outside of Munich. A very little base. It was absolutely amazing. I lived in an apartment on base, 3-bedroom apartment. Had a little balcony. If I sat on my balcony and there weren't too many trees or too many leaves on the trees, you could see the Bavarian Alps just out there.
Wow.
And like to talk about, a whole different spin on history. Back then I was a runner. I ran the Berlin Marathon.
Wow.
I went up there a day early.
Wall's still up.
No, this is
After?
This is after. This
Okay.
is late 90s.
Okay.
98 to 2001. But even still, the hotel we stayed in actually would have been in East Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Checkpoint Charlie, the Berlin Wall, there's little chunks here and there, but not much of it left. But still, to walk around and see some of the things that took place, and it just like absorb all that. With one exception, if you will, about stuff you enjoy, maybe is the day we went to Dachau,
Okay.
which is outside of Munich,
Absolutely.
and it's so overwhelming to see how the barracks were, to see the ovens,
The lamps. I've heard of the lamps.
everything
yeah.
is just so overwhelming to go in. But if I had not have gone to see it, I would have regretted that for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
As much as you don't want to see it,
You owe it.
yeah, you owe it to yourself.
You owe it to yourself and to those who perished. To understand it the best you can.
Along those same lines, I don't think Sean...
How can I dig a little deep?
Yeah.
How we're raised in this American bubble, right? That we are the heroes, we are the saviors of freedom, and we are these. When you go as a soldier to these other countries that have their own heritage, longer than us, been around for thousands of years, right? When you go to these countries and these locations, how did that challenge your interpretation of what you'd learned in school? And did it challenge that, or was it pretty congruent with what you'd learned?
I don't honestly think it challenged it too much, Eric.
Okay.
I was to London. I think I was there 92. We'll say 93 to 96. It was as I expected. There's like two different worlds. Have you ever been to England?
I've never been.
It's
All
like,
I want to do is go rock it. I want to tour
I
it.
hear you.
I want to play some music over there.
It's almost like two different worlds. If you're an American, what I'll say is an outsider. You have the royal family,
Right.
and you have all of that. Buckingham Palace and the Guard and the Tower of London.
That's almost their celebrity, right? That's their celebrity.
Queen Elizabeth is akin to Kim Kardashian.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that all happens. That seems almost stuck in time a little bit. But the rest of the country moves on, and they're regular folks that work a job and want a beer at the end of the day and struggle with the traffic and all those things that don't have the opulence, if you will, of what the royal family has. But I still appreciated seeing all that.
I bet.
I had the opportunity to see a key ceremony at the Tower of London.
What was the ceremony about?
It's just a thing that goes back hundreds of years.
Okay.
And the yeoman warders, they're the guys with the little red jackets, and they go out at a certain point at night and they lock the gate. Now, they do lock the gate, but there's a door through the gate.
Right,
so
right.
You're not trapped in there. But, it's ceremony and it's tradition and it's heritage. And
it's so deep, so long, something that we don't experience over here.
And that gave me, from a heritage perspective, I think changed my outlook moving forward in my Navy career, that I then spent as much time as I could pushing Navy heritage and talking our story and what it has really been, about the Navy and the military. And, I just took it as important.
Right? And to perpetuate those traditions and be a voice for it.
I think we let it go for a while in the U.S.
For sure.
But I think the military got back on board, and I really think a lot of effort was put into continuing those things, and I appreciated it because I saw, you have guys here that are carrying on a tradition from hundreds of years ago that serves no true purpose other than it honors the tradition.
It's amazing you say that. In a roundabout way, the show is about that. It's about we got together, Randy and I. Hello, Randy, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
We got together and we decided to make a show that, because of the divisiveness, and I'm going to segue into my next section with you. The divisiveness that exists is because we just don't know each other. We have no tether, no connection. We've in the social media, and everything is separating us, making us more isolated, not understanding each other's stories. So that's why we did this show, is to get to know one another. You know what I mean? And you coming on the show is perpetuating those traditions and that knowledge and all that stuff. So what I do really want to, with all you traveling the world and your service, and again, thank you. What I'm going to ask a hard question. What do you think of where we're at now? You know, because January 6th, things like that. What do you think of, as a soldier, as a citizen, as a human being, as a person who obviously perpetuates love and acceptance? I can tell in your heart. What do you think where are we at right now compared to the history that you have gone through in this country? Do you think we have a high sense of tradition, or are we losing that? Is this all sensationalized? Is it the louder being heard? What do you think? Give me your thoughts.
First, I'll start off by saying, don't call me a soldier.
Okay.
I was a sailor.
You were oh, goddamn.
Capital S.
Smack my ass.
Yeah.
Okay. Or not my ass, but my face.
He meant ass.
Randy and
I did mean ass. I'm sorry. I can't even smack on the ass.
I used to be a sailor.
That's why I called you a soldier. I'm just kidding.
Self-preservation. Randy and I touched on this maybe just on the fringe a little bit before you come in. This is my feeling.
Okay.
The political system in our country is broke.
Okay.
Left and right, center, it's broke.
Gotcha.
I believe that it's going to take a lot to fix it. I don't believe any effort is made if there's a Republican in the White House and a Republican president says, I want to build more schools.
Right.
Because our schools are overcrowded. The congressman, the Democratic congressman will say, no, that's a bad idea. For no
reason.
No reason.
Right.
Other than it was recommended by a Republican.
Right.
I cannot support it.
Right.
And that makes no sense. That's not how the two-party system used to operate. Vice versa.
It's identity politics.
If President Biden says he wants to do this, Mitch McConnell and his minions will come out and say, no. We will use the filibuster. We'll do this. We'll do this. And I mean, do
you think this is just so they can keep their careers? Is it really that simple?
It is. And
there's no self-sacrifice for country at all? For standing up for what's right?
I mean, if you look at the top people in either party,
right?
What was their military background?
I know.
And when you see the people with military background,
Eisenhower couldn't get elected now.
You see the difference that people like that have, and how they approach things. Kentucky, I think, is, if not the poorest state in the United States, it is very near the bottom.
Really?
In the bottom three, I think, the last time I looked. Anything that was going to bring jobs to Kentucky, Mitch McConnell should be leading the parade to get this bill passed and signed, and let's get some money flowing into Kentucky. That's not what they want. They don't want that money. He is going to oppose the whole thing as much as possible. I mean, ultimately, I think he voted for.
What do you think his motivation is, though, Dennis? What is his motivation? Is it self-preservation, or does he really believe he's doing what's right for the country?
No, he is doing what's right for Mitch McConnell.
Right, and I tend to believe that, but
and every single one of them. And I've had this discussion with my wife a few times that the Democratic Party is no better. They are self-serving.
They're both rotten. They absolutely are both wrong.
With a few exceptions.
You always have your exceptions.
Both parties, they have forgotten why they're there. They are not there for the people.
I don't think you can get up there and be heard if you are for the people.
You can't.
You just can't even get there. You're gonna die on the vine before you even get there.
Here's an example, and I mean this is a little pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
I could go to Washington and I could serve the entire state of Washington.
Right.
I don't care if you're brown, pink, green, orange. I don't care if you're straight, gay, unsure. I don't care if you're rich or poor. I could go to Washington and serve I can't say every person. I could serve what is of the best interest for the majority, regardless of party. If the majority of the people are Republican and this thing is what is best for them, I am 100% behind them.
Right.
I could never get elected.
No, because I'm pro-gay and pro-gun. I can never get elected.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You got my vote.
You got my vote?
You got my vote.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So there.
But how do we get that? How do we get that across? You know.
Unfortunately, you don't.
And I don't think we can solve that, obviously. But another question I want to ask you is, how do you think the troops feel? You know, because there was a sense. I read a story. In World War II, there were people that were committing suicide because they couldn't join.
Yeah.
That is something that my generation can't even fathom because, like, you know, my dad was in the Army. My grandpa was in World War II, but my dad's a jerk. He claimed to be in Vietnam. That's how bad of a jerk he is, but he wasn't. So, I mean, there's really nothing fucking worse. But anyways, that's my father. He was really down, like you said. That pride was down. You know what I mean? So there's such a difference between being spit on for going to war in the 70s and committing suicide because you couldn't go with your brothers. So where do you think, in your experience, what are the soldiers going through now, looking at their leader being being the guy from The Apprentice? You know. So
I don't know how this paints me. The truth is the truth.
Yeah.
When I retired,
think about it if you're going to run before you say this. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm good. Slow for a few people, quicker for others. But I pretty quickly started severing ties with military people.
Okay.
One of the reasons for that, maybe the primary reason, I think, and I think I could get a fair number of people to support me on this. I was really good at what I did as the senior enlisted leader. And in Georgia, I had in the neighborhood of 900 sailors that I was responsible for, and family members, and we're on the Army post. But I went to work every day to make their life better.
Right.
I had nothing else to gain. I have been a Master Chief since 1999. You know, and this is now 2007, 2008 timeframe. I wasn't getting anything. I wasn't getting a pay raise because of performance or any of those things. I even got a commanding officer to agree to submit an evaluation with a Latin phrase that said "above all others," simply because given the command master chief, an evaluation is an exercise in futility.
Oh,
I'm not going to compete.
There's no way.
If I was going to go try to be the master chief petty officer of the Navy, it's a written recommendation, it's a review, it's boards. My evaluation doesn't matter, you know. So, but I think I did my job really well. I feel the guy coming in behind me was not going to be not that I was better than him, but I was different, and I think I had a certain style. And once you make command master chief, you go anywhere. It doesn't have to be in your background. Well, it just so happened this base were CTs. So it was where I started is where I ended. So I understood the specifics.
You'd been there.
Yeah. And I understood what it was like to have a job where you can't go home and talk about it or vent to your wife. And I knew all that stuff. He had a different background, and I just didn't think things were going to be the same. And I didn't want people constantly like run into CMC coats.
Gotcha.
So I started cutting ties, and after about a year, I think I was completely out of that. So I stay out of it because directly addressing your question, it would break my heart in a lot of cases, and B, because I am not there and I don't see exactly what's happening.
That's mature.
So I went on to my.
And isn't there this kind of thread in there anyways where we, like, as sailors, soldiers, you could give a fuck about the president, you love the guy next to you that you're working with, kind of thing, right? You're there because of the guys you're working with, and you're there.
I mean, I'd mention that specifically.
Yeah.
My 30 years, I didn't care who was president,
right?
And it did not matter which party they were from,
right?
Because when something happened,
you heed the call.
You go here,
right? You heed the call.
Sean and Devin, that's my two boys. When we were in Germany, their mother got sent south twice for stuff happening in Kosovo and Albania.
You know what this does, Dennis? This warms my heart because it makes me realize that, you get lost in the propaganda of it all and the commercials, and you forget that what's really happening is so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
What we are as a whole, as a country, is so much bigger than our political system. And I mean, it's a big deal. Of course it is. But we're just so much bigger than the argument. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, this thing, the unfortunate attack in Kabul, that then the Republican Party is screaming to impeach Biden.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
He wasn't in charge of guarding the airstrip.
Right. Exactly.
And if things are done right, he should have no say.
Right.
He should literally say, withdraw from Afghanistan.
Right.
Boom.
Right.
The problem is
there's too much executive focus and power, right?
And social connectivity, in my opinion, has added a dimension to the military that still hasn't been figured out and still needs to be addressed. In World War II, if Churchill and Roosevelt and Stalin got together and said, well, the first thing we're going to do is invade North Africa, a telegram got sent.
Right. Right.
And if something happened, a telegram got sent back, and by the time that gets where it needs to get, and they're not.
Ramo finds out like weeks later.
They're not sitting in a bunker with a live feed from a UAV,
right? Listening
to active voice communication between the pointy end of the spear. That didn't happen. And if you look at the success of World War II, you would argue that maybe we don't need politicians leading the military.
Thank you.
They're 50,000 feet or 500,000 feet.
Right.
Make a decision. Step aside
and let these guys do their job.
If things go south and more than just one attack on an airport, maybe the on-scene commander gets relieved.
Yeah.
But it's not a split, oh no, he's going. All right. You fucked up, Eric.
Right.
Randy, you're in now. You're the host of the show.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way he just looked at me.
Put me in, coach.
Put me in.
I don't think, even in my time, I don't think that was addressed. I don't know that they know how to handle that. And unless a day came where 30 years of military service matters at that national political level, I don't think we'd ever see it change.
Well, it obviously doesn't matter because you have guys who dodged it.
Yeah.
That are in leadership positions, sending guys into battle.
The latest thing was the appointees that Trump put into the academies, to the board of trustees or whatever, that Biden said resign or get fired. And they're all up in arms. Well, most of you have never saw a day of military service. So what's your qualification to do that job? I can't walk into a courtroom tomorrow
and be a lawyer.
Right. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
President Biden couldn't call up the court in Tacoma and say, hey, here's the deal. Master Chief Coates is coming in there, and he's going to be the lawyer for this case. It doesn't happen.
It's the same thing as, like, if my Ferrari breaks, I'm going to go to a mechanic. I'm not going to look it up on the internet. You know what I mean? But with the masks, you know what I mean? It's like I don't fucking know. If I get hit by a car and my guts are hanging out, I'm gonna want a doctor there. I'm not gonna want some guy on Facebook that knows more.
Aren't you Facebook certified
in
medical?
Hey Google, something yellow is hanging out right by my navel.
Please medical attention.
Well, at least I just think that I feel like we're in an alternate universe, and you've brought us down a little bit. I appreciate that, sometimes, but I could talk to you all day. One thing we're a little over, but I want to ask you something, and not to bring this specific thing back, but January 6th was just the weirdest event I've ever seen. It wasn't like we got attacked, but we did.
Right.
But didn't we, or did we not? And what really happened when you were watching it as a person who defended the process? You've been on the front line. You made a career out of defending that process of those senators in that building. How did you feel? Did you feel that these people, were they exercising their rights, or were they traitors?
All right, so people that know me would tell you that I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I routinely will cry at the drop of a hat.
Me too. I'm a crybaby. Want to cry?
I've stood up at the Navy Day ball talking about we brought up earlier about history, and I'm talking about history and heritage of the Navy, and we'll start crying.
Yeah.
And a room full of 350 people, family members, sailors, whatever, understand. I'm crying because I care.
Absolutely.
I cried more than once on January 6th.
Yeah.
And they were not, the insurrectionists were not exercising their right.
Okay.
They had no right to enter the Capitol.
Right.
None.
Right.
Under any circumstance, they had no right. Now they'll all tell you different, and we were just being peaceful. No, you had. I quit a job. I was working from home doing fire alarm design, and my boss, shortly after that, posted this big thing on Facebook. Now, I have 7 Facebook friends, but he insisted when I stopped working in person there that we'd be Facebook friends. So he sent me a request. I accepted it. He posted this big thing about how unfair Trump was being treated. And I contacted the owner of the company and said, I will bring the computer back. I will not do one more second of work.
Wow.
I spent my entire life defending the Constitution. And what this is flies right in the face. And the fact, it breaks my heart, Eric, that we have people in Washington that poo-poo this, or it's not that big a deal, or Halsey with his, this is a white supremacist salute. When you put your hand up like this, like he does, like Ted Cruz does, like Trump does, that's a white supremacist salute.
Right.
You can't couch it. He's not waving. That is a white supremacist salute that is now acceptable. Not tolerated, but it's acceptable. So what happened that day, it breaks my heart. For more than just the obvious, it breaks my heart that there was some talk leading up to that, even some involvement of the National Guard to quell the protest. But you know what? You don't send American military in to put down American troops.
No.
Have you heard of Kent State people?
Right. Exactly.
You don't do it.
Yeah.
So you cause so much conflict now because you have people in the military, all walks of life. It's a microcosm.
It is. Yeah.
That you're now telling them to go do this thing against their neighbors, their friends, their school teacher, in some cases, police from their hometown.
Since the first time since the Civil War, it's almost like brother against brother.
You just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, sucks for the police, but that is literally what the police were for, and unfortunately, they were not prepared either. But yeah, it was wrong on many, many levels, in my opinion, and it breaks my heart still.
I really appreciate you stepping out and saying that. You know, either way, I was prepared, but we needed your point of view. You know, you are who the younger generations look up to because you're experienced, and I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. I don't want to hear bullshit. You know, and I wanted to hear it from you. You know, I appreciate you stepping out and talking about that, because that's the opposite of what politicians are doing. You know, you just put your neck out there to say what the truth was in your, you know, and when I saw it, I thought of you guys. I always think of, you know, those guys digging those holes and sitting in those holes as those mortars go around them and freezing in the cold, and that's what I think about. You know, if you could. I like to ask this question. If you could have the world's attention, Dennis, and you could either command something or just say something. If everybody in the whole world, all 7 billion, I think we're even more now, turned to you and looked at you, what would you say or implement?
You know what's funny about this? I stopped at McConey's on my way down here.
So you'd get everybody in McConey.
I'm just kidding. This popped in my head then, and then ironically, you had mentioned something that was right in line with this thought.
Okay.
Our school system, American school system, is based on a set of standards. Our school system is not based on individual needs. Okay. And that set of standards probably only satisfies 10% of the people.
Gotcha.
If I could have one say, it would be to rebuild the education system from the bottom up, so that if you're making me go to a building for 12 years, that I'm leaving with what I want. I'm 61 years old, and I've never needed to know what a dangling participle was. Never.
Or quadratic equation, right?
I never... Yeah. The only time I've ever had to solve a quadratic equation is for more education.
Right, exactly.
Right? Why do I need statistics? Oh, you need that to get your bachelor's degree.
Right.
Oh, no, I don't.
And what I'm hearing is you're saying that with the 10%, what I'm hearing is that if we had more diversity and more understanding of everybody's wants and needs, then everybody would be educated from that pedagogy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And people would leave. You wouldn't have to send your son on a 2-year tour of Europe, right, to get a true education. He would have some, maybe not all of it.
Well, it would be more student led, so we'd understand that those parents lived in Germany, and maybe you had them in for the day, and you talked about Germany, and you blah 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 blah, and you learned about your fellow students rather than trying to pass a test.
I think there's just so much in our education system that could be fixed, and it's going to take a long time. But if we started fixing an education system, a generation from now, when you're, I don't know, 117, and you get, my grandkid in here or my great grandkid and ask them questions, it would not be the same, because their experience and their background and all that would be so much different, because they didn't spend 12 years to pass a test to make the state education system look good.
So that they can get more money allocated towards that particular county or district.
Yeah, and that's not unique to Washington. That's across the entire United States.
Absolutely.
It boggles my mind. It truly does.
What boggles my mind is that that's what you brought up. How cool, that you highlighted the education system, because that's where it all starts, right?
That's what I think.
I mean, I've asked that question a ton of times, and You make me smile, Dennis. It was an absolute pleasure having you on. Will you come back?
I'll come back whenever you'll have me.
Awesome. I really thank you so much.
But if you're late next time, you better, bring donuts.
Are you fucking calling me out? He's calling me out. I got LSD, lead singer disease, and so I'm never on time.
I have it in writing that I better be here by 6:15.
And I rolled up at what? 6:30, right?
7:05.
7:05. Yep. Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you, Randy. We had a great time, and I this one tugged at my heart. I really appreciate you putting your neck out there and doing this. It means a lot to us, and it means a lot to everybody who listens to the podcast. I'm sure this is going to be one fucking enjoyable podcast for a lot of people.
And again, I'll come back whenever you want, because if you can't tell, I have a lot to say.
I love it. I love it. Oh, Eric Scott talks a lot. Brainstar Media. Use your brain, be a brainstar. This is brought to you by Random and Reckless Entertainment. Thank you so much. We're out of here. Have a good one.